Game loaded.
So here we are. We are going live with another episode of The Script Doctors, or The Script Doctor, because I'm the only one. I'm it. This is not going to be so long, right? In one way, that when I actually talk as much about Mass Effect itself, because I have to talk about a little bit about the background of Mass Effect. So welcome everybody, Chapel One, everywhere else in chat, to another Saturday night stream. So I'm gonna have to talk about, before I talk about what's wrong with and fixable with Mass Effect Andromeda itself, the narrative. We're focusing on the narrative. I may mention gameplay, but Script Doctors is about narratives in video games and movies and stuff like that that I like, right? And trying to fix something. Also, I didn't mention this last week when I did this. I'm only going to talk about those projects that I think can be fixed, right? If I think a game or a movie, whatever, is beyond salvation or it's very good, which I'm just going to nitpick, then, it's not worth it. This is about those movies, those scripts that have all the elements to be great, but somehow just didn't make it, okay? So, we have to talk about a little bit of history of the Mass Effect series before we get to Andromeda. We have to talk about how we got here. It's the end of Mass Effect 3 is controversial. A lot of people didn't like it. People like me, for example, it was a reclaim movement, try to retake a retake movement. That was the phrase, not reclaim. I guess it's a retake movement who wanted to quote unquote reclaim Mass Effect. It didn't belong to any of us individually, of course, so that was a bit egotistical. But the idea was that it had gone wrong with that ending and it should be fixed. Pressure to fix the ending led to the extended cut, which, from a narrative perspective, just made things worse. And that led to a series of DLC, especially two DLC in particular. One was Leviathan, which, again, just went sideways and was like, oh, this is even dumber than before. I'm sorry, I have to say it. And by the way, if you're a fan of Mass Effect or Mass Effect Andromeda, this is a criticism of the object, of the game, of the script, of the narrative, not a criticism of you. If you like something, more power to you, right? Hopefully, we can have an open mind and have an open discussion. If you feel this is not accurate to you, you feel attacked, literally, not figurative, not Tumblr attacks, like, oh, I feel attacked, but actually attacked, then this is not for you. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I just want to make that absolutely clear before we continue. Also, spoilers, because you can't really talk about the script, the whole script, and what to fix if you don't actually spoil things. You don't talk about in depth. Okay? So, it's the end of Mass Effect 3. We got Citadel DLC. We got Leviathan. Leviathan is done to, once again, sort of retcon things and fix things in Mass Effect to, make sure the audience understands and get a couple of more bucks in. Doesn't work. At least it didn't work for me. And it didn't work for a lot of people. And then you have Citadel DLC, which was very popular, but it really was a fan pack, or something might call it a fan job, right? Basically, the team at BioWare scoured the forums. They went to AO3, they went to other fanfic sites, picked up, I don't know, the top 100 pairing or something, and just mooshed them together into one DLC, and voila, they, pay $5-10 for it, and away you go. And a lot of people were happy with that. But by the time of Mass Effect Andromeda, BioWare had a problem. The focus in Electronic Arts, their parent company, was bigger and bigger games, particularly centered around microtransactions. Particularly one set of microtransactions, which is loot boxes or loot crates, right? The only way you can get people to, only way to make it $15. Chabomon just corrected me on chat. $15 for the Citadel DLC. The only way that that really loot boxes are viable, any sort of microtransaction is really viable, is that you have a very large install and player base, usually a player base that is so invested in that generates a certain percentage of those people, usually between 5 to 10% of them, the last numbers I checked, that are so invested in the game that they will regularly not only spend money on the game, but do so in sufficient numbers to justify the expense, right? Not for themselves, but for the parent company. So the idea was any new Mass Effect game had to be bigger, much bigger than anything that came before. Mass Effect Andromeda, if you play it fully, you take your time, clocks in around 60 hours, more or less. It has no DLC, and that's not counting any time you spend on multiplayer. Each game in the original series clocks around between 20 to 25 hours. Mass Effect 2 clocks around 30 hours with all the DLC, give or take. Again, if you take your time. So essentially, you can take the three vanilla games, Mass Effect, Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3, add them all up. Yeah. Uh, it's up there in chat, don't worry about it. And you would get about the same runtime for Mass Effect Andromeda. That I think is mistake number one. I would take Mass Effect Andromeda and cut about a third of it at least, if not half. So make it a 30 to 40 hour game at most, because most of that time is wasted. But let's go back to the microtransactions for a second. What's the problem with them? What's going on with that? Well, you need a huge player base, right? Not only to make engender a lot of sales, but eventually get a percentage of that. It's usually called whales, WALES, not Wales as a the nation or the people thereof, the Welsh, and get them invested enough they'll spend hundreds of dollars US or the equivalent, or $1,000 per month for months, if not years. So the challenge that BioWare had in order to remain relevant into the new Electronic Arts ecosystem was to create a very large, long game that would attract three kinds of people. New players, because you need to expand your player base. People who may have looked at Mass Effect and were like, that's kind of not for me, right? Bring back all the people like me who were like, yeah, we're kind of done with Mass Effect. And they kind of done a Mass Effect that we're talking about, what, 10 years, 8 years afterwards, and we're still talking about Mass Effect, but we don't really kind of like it kind of way. Yeah, whatever. We're really done with it. Except, we're not, but And then finally, the hardcore audience that stuck with English, not first language. Someone was reminding me that he only remembers the Citadel price because it was the most expensive DLC, and he waited until it was 50% off. So okay, so about $7, I think, out of $7.50 out of $15. So that is something that is happening. So how do you balance these three groups, especially the second group with the third group, right? Well, yeah, yes, I do that. In a way, it's the old adage of you can't please all the people all the time. In this case, they couldn't even please all the people some of the time. Something had to give. And what they tried to do was have their analogy, I suppose, so euphemism, have their cake and eat it too, just that the cake was kind of half baked. Well, the good parts were good, the other parts were like kind of dry. So they wrote a story that takes off in the middle of the event of what's happening in the original series between Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2, I believe. That's the start, the official start, but then goes to a completely new galaxy with new characters, etc. But every so often, and by often I mean every other thing that you do, is a callback back to the original series, and that's where essentially it fails. As a warning, in this is really the first. We already talked about this, especially when we talked about Mass Effect 2 last week. One of the problems with stories, whether in video games or somewhere else, that just don't quite make it in my book is that they have all the elements, but I often find that they lack focus. That is, they don't have the right focus on the right things. The things are there, the elements are there, characters, setting, lore, etc., plot points, usually in the form of subplots. But the focus is somewhere else, or it's completely unfocused. So it's a smorgasbord of stuff, some good, some bad, but you don't focus enough on the good stuff or the relevant and important stuff. Because by trying to tie it back to yeah, somewhere between 2 and 3, I think. Yeah, actually, that's true, between Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. Um, but before the events of Mass Effect 3. Close to, but not at the event. Or we'll call it at the event horizon. Actually, it's before Arrival because Arrival doesn't get mentioned. I think the events of Arrival doesn't get mentioned in Mass Effect Andromeda. Or then maybe they were, but I missed it. Um, so we have these tie-ins to please the people who were the hardcore uh, followers of Mass Effect, people who stuck with Mass Effect through thick and thin, who loved the ending, or at least especially loved it after the EC extended cut. But because it was out of focus to the new stuff that you were bringing to the table, it wasn't enough to entice either new players or satisfy older players, right? What Mass Effect Andromeda needed was a clean cut. It could either been one. I have two choices for that. One, it's an alternate universe, right? It's a universe where there are no Reapers, so the whole thing with Shepard and the Reapers doesn't really happen. Humanity goes onto the stars, and maybe there was a Shepard. You have Protheans, you have everything else, but no Reapers, right? And anything, actually, you can explain everything with the Protheans. So at some point, humanity and some others discover that the Protheans disappeared, or and went to another galaxy, maybe using the Citadel, for example, it's a very big mass relay that can at least propel ships to dark space, which is the space between galaxies. So maybe they use the Citadel to just go somewhere else, or in their exploration, humanity or someone else discovered that a rogue planet or something that clearly comes from another galaxy, and that either one of those two things point at Andromeda, because that's one of the problems as well, and lack of focus is that one of the things I struggled when I was playing Andromeda way back when I played it, playing all the games including Andromeda, was I could never really find believable the reason why the initiative happened, right? Other than exploration. It's like, yeah, but you explore in places where you can go and kind of come back, right? Because you want to share information, you want to share discoveries, you want to expand your territory, your economy, etc. The best you can hope in the current situation in Andromeda is after 600-year journey, that technology in the form of data can be shared between this new galaxy and the older galaxy if after 600 years somehow there's somebody who remembers that you left. And by the way, the initiative was very secretive to begin with, although not too secret. Again, one of those problems with that. Make the initiative not a secret at all, because there's and remember you, and something, other catastrophe hasn't happened that they even remember, or that your technology 600 years in the future is somehow compatible with the technology, which your technology was current when you left, but it's 600 years old, 6 centuries old, so no longer compatible or completely compatible. So you might be phoning home and nobody's like, we don't care. Yeah, Tabaman mentions that having Shepard record a message, which the message appears, I believe, in the opening of the game, and also, but mostly in the commercials as well. Um, so while it's understandable that you have a callback, and the game, for example, starts with choosing whether your shepherd was male or female, it's like you're in a completely different galaxy. It doesn't matter, right? So cut the cord there. It's a different version of the galaxy. No Reapers, so therefore no mass extinction, no nothing of that. And Andromeda not only takes place in a different timeline. Think of it like, for example, in Gundam, where you have something like Universal Century, and you have, Anno, you have different versions of it, and many franchises have done that, like different dimensions, different realities, similar but not the same. The other aspect of doing that would be uh the Reapers happen, and this happen actually starts happening a few decades or maybe a century after the Reapers have arrived. This is like the Reapers are killing everybody, right? I guess it will be kind of alter reality, because in Mass Effect 3 you're supposed to have solved the problem. Well, at least in most of the choices you're given. And so that didn't happen for whatever reason. All the remaining races in the galaxy get together. It's like, we just got to get the hell out of here, right? We build technology. Maybe we have covered a couple of Reaper tech that allows us to just get the heck out. We're gonna go. Hopefully, yeah, they come. So Zelda does the same thing, for example, remembering that, and many other franchises do this, right? You get out of there because we have no choice. You go to a new galaxy, start there, and hopefully, after a few generations, you can come back to the Milky Way and reestablish yourself, like that. Which is implied. Which one of the things? Again, that's one of the problems with the initiative. There's a side story, co-story, if you will, co-plot, if you will, not even a B plot, just sort of like again, you have the plot about being in the Andromeda galaxy, but you have this constant callbacks to what's happened before, with the death of the leader of the initiative, that she was murdered, etc. Again, spoilers. Well, we never really resolved the murder, really, so that's left hanging as well. And we're constantly told, oh, thank God you left the galaxy, or the goddess, whatever, because yeah, we're dying, But it's just, since we would need to have another Andromeda game to go. Oh, by the way, the reason why this was a mystery is because of this, and that's too many games. Another game removed. By that time, I don't think anybody's gonna care, And we're not expecting another Andromeda game. So again, it doesn't matter. Yeah, congratulations. um, so again, you left, and you go to this galaxy, and because you need to survive, right? Either you go there because you want to solve this mystery that started in your galaxy and connects to this other galaxy, or you're leaving the galaxy because you have no other choice, right? That creates a stronger sense of why, as a group, you have the initiative, right? Now, getting to Andromeda. In Andromeda, you start with a sort of a time skip, because you arrive 1 year after the first ship/space station arrives, which is the Nexus. I would not do that. I would not only have more ships, I would do a couple of things. First of all, not have just one ship per race, because 20,000 humans alone in a hostile galaxy, not even a hostile planet, are just too little. You're going to need probably five to six times as many of those. So each race has like a small fleet of arcs. If something happens to one of the arcs, etc., you have backups and whatnot. So about 20 to 25,000 inhabitants per arc. So anywhere between 100 to 125,000 humans, Asari, and also I would make the number smaller. And I'll explain that later on. I would not have all the races. I would only have Asari. I only have the council races: Asari, Salarians, Turians, and humans. That's it. Yeah, again, that's one of the problems, and I would eliminate all of that. Yeah, it makes callbacks, eliminates all the callbacks, because either it never happened in this version of the galaxy, or it's a century afterwards, and it doesn't matter, right? So you arrive, and I would have time skips. I don't know why they did it. They wanted to have a crisis and stuff like that, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, you're here, but there's the scourge. I will not change the scourge. That's a pretty, it's a pretty interesting thing. An environmental hazard, a good mystery to solve. In fact, I would make it all about trying to solve what the Scourge is about instead of making it about the cat. I don't mind the cat, but we'll talk about the cat in a moment. So you have the initiative, and from then on, we're going to treat the initiative as one race. Now, there are multiple races, but they come from the same place. So when I say humanity or the initiative, I mean the same thing, right? Because they're all in one boat, right? Then I would have a focus on Andromeda, right? Let's say that I would not, for example, kill Alex like within 5 or 10 minutes of the game starting. I would actually have a time. So like you go to the first planet, you start doing investigating, you discover the remnants, and that I would have a time skip. Not only that, but I would not have one Pathfinder per ship. I would have what I call a Pathfinder core, right? A group, say maybe 100 or 200 per ship, who are the ones who are the first ones to go to these planets. They explore, and once they start settling, then they do more. There's a sort of special forces teams thing that is deployed later on in Andromeda, but they're not truly Pathfinders. The Pathfinder is only the one person per ship. And I would have that take time. So you would have a couple of months. You wouldn't have one of the siblings. Which the main character can be male or female, and they're twins, and either one of them is you play one, you can't really play the other. Said maybe briefly at the end of the game. I wouldn't do that. Instead, they're both playable, right? And if you make a character that's more, soldier type, more combat orientated, then the other character would default to be more tech, scientific orientated, right? Regardless of gender. So if I choose a female writer, then and I say that she is a combat oriented character, then the twin would be the tech oriented, science oriented character. I don't, while we don't have a lot of women, as many women as we should have on STEM and science and the like, but having her sort of default to the softer side, it's a problem. So there's that. Have that at time and have time in that planet, right? And it takes time, weeks, months to build, etc. And slowly but surely you start having problems, like having contact with having contact first with maybe the cat, maybe have contact with the Angarans, right? Tentative contact, maybe just combat, maybe you see each other from a distance, right? And also have the situation between those who want to preserve the citadel way of life, right? And just basically transplant it to Andromeda, to the Helios cluster, or have people like, we're just going to break with this and do our own thing. But have that develop slowly, not having just be there as soon as you get there and they already have their own city and stuff like that. Now is where it gets interesting, because one of the problems that Andromeda has is a new galaxy, but technically we have 3, maybe 4 alien races, but 2 of them we only see their technology, so we don't never meet them, and the other 2 are the Angarans and the Ket. Now again, I have no problem with the Ket. It's just that their plot is an assimilation plot, which is basically what the Reapers do, but less sophisticated. Again, spoilers. What the Ket do is that they take members of well, yeah, that's true, who also happens to be a specter as well, and his mission is part of the mission is trying to find his boyfriend, not husband, I think it's husband, turning husband, and that be the thing. And what I would do is I would add another race, so I would have the Ket, the Angarans, the Jandarans or Jandorans are the remnants, and then have the other, whatever that means, and then have the initiative be one race, right? And each one of them would have a split. Like again, in the Citadel, we'll have 2 factions, one to preserve the way of the Citadel, and I wants to have complete, break ties with that and do something completely different. With the Angarans, we also already established have a split. Those who are welcoming of these new races, while others are distrustful and even aggressive because I mean, in the way it's explained in Mass Effect, it's done very well, in that well, we already had a contact with the cat, but here everybody's sort of coming together simultaneously. I would have a split with the cat. The cat would still be bad guys. Yeah. Um, but the kid are bad guys in that they're conquerors, right? And again, that split is kind of shown, but because of the lack of focus, we don't see enough people representing the other take, right? The Archon, which is the leader of the Ket, it would be the aggressive military, people here to want to conquer, right? But I would have another faction with the Ket who still want to conquer, but they want to use soft power, right? They are against. They have the same purpose as the Archon, but they want to integrate the Angarans and this cluster using soft power. Economy, culture, stuff like that. Eventually, what they'll do is the same thing. They'll take people, right, and convert them to Ket. Uh, Oh yeah, I mean that's the same thing. I mean the Chapelmon on chat is going. The cat are like the lamer Borg that use biology rather than technology. That's what I meant about assimilation plot, right? I mean the Reapers are like the Borg, right? The Borg, the Alien in the Alien franchise, the cat. There's just more of the same, right? Um, we've seen this in many games and many movies. Different takes on this. The cat is just another take on it. Um, so have that split, right? That can be exploited, right, etc. You get it. I think you get a side quest where you get it. You can weaken the Archon, but it doesn't amount to much of anything anyway. So you don't have the faction of Ket that actually join you or rebel or anything like that. So you know, I will have this other race. I'll just call them the other. Uh, be a distinct race and have them be the remnants of the race that was uh, fighting the Jordan, right? The ones that created all the terraforming technology that you have to find and solve. But for whatever reason, maybe they were another creation of Jordan and they rebelled against Jordan, or because Jordan, again, spoilers, created the not the cat, they created the Angarans, right? So Angarans are essentially an artificial creation, entire race that was artificially created. The other basically either rebelled or were another race from another galaxy, or another race from somewhere else in the galaxy. They rebelled, or they just came in contact with the Yardan and said, and they had a fight, and they essentially unleashed the scourge as a sort of like a final solution, kind of high tech nuke, but it backfired. It drove away the Yardan or killed them off. Um, it, of course, sent the Garans back technologically, but it also did the same to the other. And now the other has a division as well. There are those who said, okay, we made a mistake. Maybe they don't know it, but you find out about it and you actually inform them. We're like, oh, okay, we made a mistake. We have to work with the Angarans and work with the initiative to rebuild and coexist. And another faction says, no, we are superior. We are, we're not going to make peace with the Angarans because they're symbols of our former enemies. Yeah, that's true. And um, and they actually see themselves as superior, so they might ally with the Ket, right? Seeing then, and so you have an alliance with you could have a situation where it's the Angarans and the Initiative versus the other and the Ket allied together and fighting each other. So making a very complex situation. Also, that would mean that the cluster will have to be bigger, have more locations, or at least have more locations on the existing planets. Because one of the problems that the game has, setting wise, is that you literally have at least two planets which are deserts for some reason. Reminds me of Dragon Age Inquisition that way. Like, there's a lot of empty space, a lot of running around. You get They're interesting by themselves, but you kind of get tired of them a little bit, and there's a lot of backtracking, especially the first time you play the game. So I would spice that up a little bit. The game would continue as it is. I would also go back and reevaluate, especially the human companions in your ship, right? Um, because they're kind of boring. And one particular character, and I'm going to look for her name because I forgot her. Phoebe. Well, she is. Her name is the Asari companion. I said when I talked about Mass Effect a long time ago, I said that she sounds like what an she is the embodiment of what an octogenarian thinks a millennial is. Like very, you know, crazy and flippant and stuff like that. And this is a trend with, I didn't say this before because Mass Effect doesn't have this, but it's certainly, you can see it certainly in Dragon Age Inquisition. The writers in BioWare, whether they're from Edmonton or wherever they might be, they have a thing where they write about characters that are clearly have, they're not neurotypical characters, right? But they almost sort of played it for laughs, right? Like this is a very smart character, but otherwise they have big social gaps and don't know how to relate to other people, etc. Sarah was like that, and it was played mostly for laughs, although this has a darker side to it. And Phoebe is like that. I mean, when I played her mission, I was like, I literally chose the bad ending where I killed or I let her ex girlfriend die because it was like I was just tired of it. This is nonsense. Um, there's another character. Let me look at my notes here about the cast of. Oops, sorry about that. That's not supposed to sound like that. That's a. There's another cast member which I also had a problem with his mission. Costa, I think it is. Let me see. Cast of characters Andromeda. Romanceable characters, yeah. Cora, Vetra, Reyes, Carrie. Cora was fine, but her obsession with Yasara was a bit too much. It gets called out in game, but still, it's like it's a thing. So yeah, Liam. It's Liam. I didn't like Liam so much. I mean, he's fine, but his mission is all. For some reason, this is somebody who has worked with other people before in dangerous situations, and yet his mission, the way he talks about what's going on, it's almost like he thinks he's in the middle of a movie. I'm like, what? It had some cool gravity mechanics and all that, but for the most part, it's like, what is this, right? It's just, I don't know who wrote them. I don't know what they were looking for, what was their aim, but love the Angarans, love the Angaran teammate that you get. Like I said, I would make the game shorter. I would make it more about the. I would have some time skips. Like I would. There's another option to this. If you want to retain the original situation, is I would have Alex, the lead Pathfinder, be with in the Nexus, and if you arrive late, he's already died. Instead of and so your mission is as a Pathfinder, personal mission is to find out either your father disappears if he doesn't die immediately, or if he's already dead, you try to find out his mystery. And there's a quest line in the game that's all about finding his memories. But again, instead of tying it back to the old game, right, old Satyrs game, this would be new. Let's say that he was suspicious of the cat, right, or he disappears investigating the cat, and then you realize that there's more to this sector of the galaxy than just sort of magical phenomena of the scourge or this old technology. It's all tied together in a way, and following his footsteps, you realize what the Kett ultimately want, whether they want to conquer or they want to conquer, through cultural assimilation or military conquest, right? That's what they want to do. Either way, they're conquering a race, and you also realize that they are the ones who want to convert people, and you get to Bone World, right? And that would be the plot that really connects. Because one of the problems I found out with that Mass Effect Andromeda is at the middle, those 40 some hours in the middle, they're reminiscent of the side quest in the original Mass Effect, which is you just run around doing a lot of wandering and little things here and there. It's a lot of filler for and a lot of callbacks. I mean, again, Chabawan mentioned earlier on chat, he mentioned the Reapers, Saeed's son, Gareth's father, Grunt's creator, Project Overlord, Conrad Vernon. I mean, there's all these callbacks and little side quests that for the fans, especially they're there for the hardcore fans, right? To reward them for sticking with Mass Effect. But for everyone else, it's like, especially if you're a new player, you go like, eh, I don't know what are these people. I don't care. I just want to, I want to play the game. So make the focus Andromeda and the planets and all that, and make it so that that's the line that connects. Instead of being sort of the side quest, which I actually didn't finish. I had to watch some video to watch the end of it, and the end of it is again. Oh, by the way, Alex, Liara shows up for whatever reason. Liara knows Alex, even though it never gets mentioned in the original games. Yeah, we're screwed. The Reapers are here and we're all dying. And good thing that you're out there in a new galaxy and some of us will survive. I'm like, cool, cool, cool. But, we solved that back in Mass Effect. It's unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary. Make it about Andromeda. So that's one of the reasons why I would shrink it down to about 40 hours, maybe 30. It could be bigger than, the original per game, but not so big. It's too much, right? Um, and make Alex's either disappearance slash death or the reason why you're investigating, right? Instead of just taking over from Alex, you take the lead as a human pathfinder, because you have this connection with your father. But you also having these time skips allows you to prove yourself as a leader. As a writer, you're not simply trading on your father's name, which in fact the game actually calls you out for. It's like, oh, you're wearing that N7 armor, but you're not N7, right? You call yourself the Pathfinder, but I knew your father, but I don't know you, kind of thing. It's like, no, you either with your father or investigating where your father went to, you actually earned your spurs, which kind of happens in the game, but it's better to walk into it because unlike Shepard was already an N7, right? He was already a Spectre candidate, right? And he had to prove himself. And even then, he was constantly proving himself. You feel that Shepard naturally fills in, and everyone say, "Yeah, you're shooing to be the next Spectre and all that. That he was a Spectre candidate, but you're not. You just happen to be the son of the Pathfinder, right? One of several. So instead, making the Pathfinder core bigger with more specialities and stuff like that. Make all your uh, members of the Pathfinder core, right? That makes sense as well. You don't have that thing with Cora where Cora's jealous because she's supposed to be the second in command but wasn't the Pathfinder. Right? Make the Pathfinder like N7 and Spectres, an organization, rather than just a handful of individuals, one per ship. Um, and another thing, and this is another thing I would do, and also why you would have time to develop. I would severely cut back on the magic AI, i.e., Sam, because the narrative depends on, hey, you have this connection in your brain because you have this implant with Sam, and that makes you to magically open all the boxes. Even though this is technology from a completely new race, the type of technology we've never seen before in the Mass Effect universe, and it's literally from another galaxy. The timescales alone is just amazing. People don't understand. The fact that it's not simply space, this is thousands, millions of light years, but also relative time as well. And yet, because you have this AI developed in another galaxy, You can touch a box. It's like, okay, problem solved. I would actually have PB be more like the PB route, which he's actually studying the technology, and in fact, having to go to the different races would be very important because that's probably what Alex was trying to do, try to figure out what this technology is all about. So going to the Angarans and seeing what technology they have in connection to the remnant, go to the other and see what their connection, technological connection is to the scourge and to the remnant, go to the ket, right? It would be very interesting, for example, if you went to the Angaran capital, there would have been a ket representative there. And you're like, I don't trust the cat because I have some clues that maybe they were involved in my father's disappearance slash death, or they have attacked our settlements. But now I have to, I have to play nice with the cat because the Angarans are in the middle, right? They're, you know, and maybe the cat representative is complaining that these rebel Angarans are, attacking them for no reason whatsoever, right? The people that are against they're attacking everybody. They're attacking the cat. They're attacking the other. They attack the initiative because they don't want anyone to invade them. Right? Maybe they have some records, maybe some remembrance of what happened to their creators, and they think we cannot accept any attackers, right? Any invaders. No matter how peaceful they seem to be, um, they're foreigners, right? They don't belong here. Eventually, they'll try to conquer us. And also, it would be interesting to, especially in that discussion between maintaining the old ways and the new ways, because if you think about it, the way the Citadel races work is by assimilation, by socioeconomic assimilation, right? They don't necessarily outright conquer, but everybody that it's like the Federation in Star Trek, right? Everybody who comes to a certain technological threshold gets invited to work with um, the Citadel, but also means they have to accept the Citadel economy, Citadel laws, Citadel representation, their strengths and weaknesses. In essence, you're being assimilated by this sort of multicultural galactic empire, right? So it wouldn't be very different from the Ket, who are promising, at least, using soft power, promising to have the Angarans join them as well as the other, join their empire, right? In at least culture, it turns out the Ket are always evil, and assimilation always means a syringe, and you'll be ultimately transformed into more gas, right? Um, and have that contrast with the people who want to cut ties. Let me put it this way, because there's analogies, for example, to the discovery and settlement, colonization, and conquest of the Americas by Europeans. Those who want to hold on to the old ways literally will build ships and settlements that look like and feel like a reproductions of their home countries. They'll bring the language. But what about if the new people, the people who are divided, say, no, 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 new galaxy, new rules. We have to adapt to those who are already existing here, right? Look toward the Angarans. Look at their culture. Look at their economy. Look at their technology. Look at the other. Look at the cat. These are the people. This is their galaxy. It is their rules, and we can only survive by adapting to them, to their situation. In other words, do you impose yourself on the Helios cluster, or do you integrate into the Helios cluster? And I think that would have been very fascinating. The game touches upon that quite a bit, but again, it's a matter of focus. And since the focus is not entirely on Andromeda and the new races, it's not really there. I would play. Eventually, you discover that the Ket, who the creators of the Angarans are, the Jandarans. They discover the conflict between the other and the Angarans, and that they at some point were the creators of the Scourge, this sort of scientific mass nuke. And you start getting to, it's going to take time to reverse or alter, right? And you also discover that the Ket are there to convert everybody to the Kets, right? To the Ket Empire, literally. And so it plays out the same way. Maybe you make a temporary alliance with those who use soft power, but you keep an eye on them. But eventually the Archon goes crazy. Also about the Archon kind of reminds me of Corypheus in Dragon Age Inquisition. He's a little bit more developed, let's say, the villain from KOTOR, Lantern Jaw, but he's still very much like Corypheus, like, this is my destiny, this is what I need to do. And that's fine once. But when your big villain's just more the same, especially now with the basketball hoop in his head, it's I did like the final fight. One thing I would rewrite would be the time where your sibling wakes up and then they just take him prisoner, so that the Archon just uses them to activate whatever it's going to do. And I would have the Archon actually, especially the more aggressive Archon, actually working to do what he was trying to do, which is dark spawn in space, yes, and get to know the technology and use it. The kit apparently are anti AI for whatever reason. Uh, I would take that away, right? It's like there's no reason for it. That's the thing again from original Mass Effect games, and there's a reason for that, and there's the Reapers and the Geth and all that, and so we're not dealing with any of that. Having the cat sort of replicate that here is, eh, doesn't make any sense. Um, and have the final fight. I have the fight in the sphere. Have all your allies that you brought in. That was pretty cool, right? And that's one of the things about why it pays off to play the game up to 60 hours, because these side quests essentially you're bringing more and more allies. But again, you can do that in a more smaller scale, right? Um, and then don't have it so that, in fact, don't have it that they attack the Nexus or take, or anything like that. Instead, just maybe have one of them attack one of the arc the the arcs, right? The Asari arc. That plot line, soft pedal the intense core love for the Asari. It's like, okay, just just soft pedal it. Just step back a little bit, having Cora be like so intense about the Asari. Well, otherwise, she's fine. I would give her some extra dimension, talk more about her parents, and her personal views, etc., and whatnot. And then you go to the ending. The ending is fine, right? Um, and it opens up like, but I would make it clear that once you get rid of the cat, at least the more aggressive cat, now there's still other problems, like, and because this is either an alternate basically it's going to be alternate history, because either it happens, the Reaper invasion happened and the Reapers were successful, or there were no Reapers. The one technology that the initiative should have is the mass relay technology, because otherwise that means that they're trapped essentially in the Helios cluster, because it would take, maybe it'll take 6 centuries, but it'll probably take decades, if not a century or more, to go to the next cluster. And I would end the 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 story with saying, "Oh, by the way, the Jandarn are from this galaxy, and they have built other sort of sphered worlds, right, around a sun across the galaxy, right? And they have seeded this galaxy. Maybe what happened was that this galaxy was dying or dead, and the Jardin basically seeded the galaxy with um, their own life forms, right? Like and they're out there, and the Agarans and the other go, those who ally with you, if you actually didn't kill them off, um, or maybe you killed off the Agarans, the Dyson sphere, that's the term, yeah. Thank you, Chapel One. Have whoever maybe you sided one, you could do like the Gath and the Quarters, where you side completely with one with the other, and exterminate the others. You want to be that extreme, um, or maybe don't. You have an alliance. You said there are others, and we have the we in the Mass Effect galaxy, in the Milky Way, had a way to go and breach the gap, right? Uh, we have mass relays, so and maybe also make the Nexus like a Nexus, basically a um, a super mass relay that can connect back to the Citadel, so that you can have more instantaneous travel. So two things happen. You finally get news from the Milky Way galaxy. It's like, hey, we made it. We're here. You know, we finally activated the Nexus. We can go back. In fact, one of the things why you want to be careful with the cat is that you don't want the cat to capture the Nexus, right? Because that would give them a chance to attack the Milky Way, right? And try to do that. All the technology, all taking on all the races and all the technology that the you know the forces, especially in a universe where there were no Reapers. If they go back where the Reapers are, they're finding that either fight Reapers or find a dead galaxy. So, getting there. And if you're taking the version where there were no Reapers, they will have to take on the Turians and the humans and at full strength, and they're not going to win. They're going to get their asses kicked. They will be a nuisance, but nothing more than that. Especially if the Geth are running around and helping people on the like instead of being enemies. So yeah. Um, and so we have two things: a connection back to the Milky Way, so information and eventually travel can be made between the two of them, and mass relays that can be used to connect to other clusters. And essentially, you're setting up for a few. In fact, this was already planned that you would have different. Essentially, Mass Effect Andromeda was going to be like Dragon Age, where you have different characters after several time skips, years, decades, even centuries. So you would have another character, maybe you could play a human or Angaran or whatever, and going to other areas, right? With the big enemy on a picture of how big the Ket are, right? And in this particular galaxy, and it's your mission to either stop the Ket advance or defeat them altogether, right? Um, and you could even have a situation where you wipe out everybody, right? If you want to play the evil playthrough, and it is the initiative, which I'm treating as a single race, I'm using two fingers, single phrase, uh, conquers everything, which would be hard, but not impossible. And now it's your nascent empire versus the Ket Empire, and away you go, right? And you have a series of other games. So overall, Andromeda has all the elements are there. It's just really a matter of focus, right? The ending is solid, except for that bit about the DLC that never came through about the other races showing up. Um, I would cut back things, forget about anything that happened before. This is a completely new, different game, and make it shorter but more focused, particularly on the events, the races, the technology, everything about it. This new galaxy is a new game. Focus on that, and you'll be good. I think BioWare is planning on a new game. I don't think they're going to go back to Andromeda. But then again, it might never happen. The remake will come out next week, and not next week, next year. Next week, I have two games I'm thinking about talking about, or I may talk about the Star Wars prequels. I'm thinking about Fallout 4, uh, Knights of the Old Republic 2, or talk about the Star Wars prequels, just to have a little variety from just talking about video games and the script. So, thank you everybody for coming. If you wish to support the channel, there are many ways to do so. You can join the chat. Streaming during the week is being iffy because I have a little personal side note. My dad will be going to chemotherapy in the beginning of December. And so we're prepping on that. I have to do a lot of things. I have to make sure I travel. I have to make sure that, I take my COVID test done at time, and he has to do some other test before he goes under. So, at least the entire week, the first week of December, probably I won't be available. I'll try to stream in the evenings, but my regular schedule is twice in the day, mornings and afternoons, 8 to 11 in the mornings, 2 to 5 in the afternoons, and 8 o'clock to about 10 to 11 at night from Monday to Friday. And then now Saturdays, around 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Atlantic, we're doing Script Doctors, where I talk about stories that I like and wish I could fix. And you're welcome to join us. And if you have any ideas of like, oh, this is a good idea, I wish I could fix it, you can join us in the channel. And hopefully in the future, I will have one or more co-hosts so we can also talk about these things as well. So it's more than just a script doctor. So it's been me, lessons learned. Thank you, Chapelmon, and thank all your viewers. The channel is growing. Um, and I'll talk about that later on. Also on Mondays, I have the podcast, the Lesson Night podcast with Chapelmon. There probably will be a podcast this Monday, at least at 2 o'clock, at 1 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock at Atlantic. So I hope you join us for that as well. We talk about video games and news and all that. So again, thank you, Ed, for coming. And as always, we'll see you when we see you. Bye bye, everybody.